out saying it is lacking in merit. But what's your thought really going by the operations of the EFCC since 2003 when it was established?
Well, thank you very much. First, let me comment on the Supreme Court decision regarding the legality of the EFCC. And I want to say that my first reaction was that of relief. Relief in the sense that if that law had been struck down, it would have created a lot of problems for not only Nigeria, but for good governance in Nigeria. The idea of fighting corruption is a global thing now, and any government that is not seen to have laws in place to fight corruption is not taken seriously in the global community. And so when those governors or governments, the United States government challenged it, it was, I was taken aback. Taken aback in the sense that if you say you want to join the global community, you need to do things according to global best practices. And now, if you now take EFCC to court challenging its legality, if that law had been struck down, as I've said, it would have been an embarrassment to everybody. Embarrassment in the sense that you cannot, the kind of situation we have in Nigeria, you cannot but have an organization like the EFCC. If you don't have it, it will create a lot of mess. Now, having said that, the EFCC may not be a perfect organization, but that the fact that it's been there since 2003 has created a kind of deterrent effect. Otherwise, you would have discovered that everywhere you go would have become messed up by all manner of corruption. But the fact that you have the EFCC there, breathing down on the neck of everybody, it's a kind of deterrent, it has a kind of deterrent effect. So those who ordinarily would have gone into corruption and looted the treasury indiscriminately, some of them are, they take a very, they become very circumspect. And then they say, EFCC is watching me. I was watching a video about a day ago of the former governor of, the late former governor of Ondo State, cracking a joke about the EFCC. And whether you like it or not, the perception of EFCC, the fear of the EFCC is the beginning of wisdom. He was saying that sometimes when they gather the wealth, EFCC may come and take everything away from them. And that is the thing with EFCC. Everybody sees the EFCC, although it has its own shortcomings and challenges, but the fact that EFCC is there meant that at least those who ordinarily would have dipped their hands in the till of the coffers of the state, some of them are withdrawing. They are not doing that because of the fear of EFCC. And if you look at the EFCC generally, despite the challenges, I want to say that it has secured some convictions which have been hailed by everybody. It has secured, it has recovered a lot of stolen wealth. It has frozen assets. And all this, whether you like it or not, is a plus. Because if those assets were just there, looted, stolen, and look at the case with the former Minister of Petroleum, the lady, the Desiani, look at the humongous loot that EFCC recovered from her. And from other high-profile people like that, including Paul, the former Inspector General of Police, and some other people like that. So the EFCC may not be perfect, but it has done optimally. It has performed optimally within the challenges that is confronting it.
Let us also look at the EFCC, really. I mean, because some persons have actually questioned how it was actually established.
Yeah.
I mean, according to reports, the EFCC or the act creating the EFCC happens to be the fastest, in the history, to be created by the House of by the National Assembly.
Yeah.
I mean, according to reports, it was in just 2 days, and it actually came because, as at that time, 2003, President Obasanjo wanted to cancel the pari loans that the Nigerian government is actually owing. And part of the conditions or requirements to get this loan cancelled is for Nigeria to be part of the financial regulation bodies world over.
Yeah.
And one of the ways you can be part of this is to have an agency or agencies that would actually, serve as police, as far as financial crimes are concerned.
Yeah.
But now, looking at it, do you think this particular act creating the EFCC being passed in 2 days, do you think as at that time due diligence was done in terms of even its works, its jurisprudence, the areas it should legislate, how it should go about fighting crimes and the rest of them?
Well, why not trying to justify how and the manner the law establishing the EFCC was passed by the National Assembly? I want to believe that what you call 2 days is not actual, cannot be 2 days, because a lot of groundwork would have been done. It's only coincidental that at the time it was going to be passed, there were pressures of time and so on and so forth. But if you look at the enabling law, the act itself, it spells out a lot of things that will show you that those things that were put there couldn't have been done in 2 days. But having said that again, I want to say that you need an organization like EFCC, like I've said, if you want to join the global community in terms of financial transparency, financial discipline, access to loans and things like that. Because if you don't have that, then it means that people will collect loan and then use it the way they like, and there will just be impunity on the part of those who will use those funds. And that's why it was necessary at that point in time. And don't forget that in 2003, when it was established, it was probably the first of its of its nature in the whole of Africa. Outside South Africa, I don't think we've had any organization like the EFCC in any part of Africa. And from that humble beginnings, many African countries have also set up their own anti-corruption agencies using the EFCC as a benchmark in terms of operations, in terms of facilities put in place, and so on and so forth. And the EFCC also, like I said, despite its challenges, is also doing a lot in curbing the specter of corruption in Nigeria.
Okay. Maybe we go to Dr. Oyegbile to have his own reaction when he saw that over 16 states were actually suing the EFCC, and after the dismissal by the Supreme Court on Friday, your reaction post dismissal. Let's get to hear you, sir.
Yes, and my first reaction then was that of we actually joined, because the EFCC was established in 2003. That's about 21 years ago. A child that was born 21 years ago is no longer a child; he's an adult. So, the first question I asked myself when I heard about the states who moved together to sue the EFCC was, where were they all these years? Where were they 21 years ago? Are they just waking up to the reality that Efcc is an illegal body or something? Thank God the Supreme Court gave that judgment. The model that set up the Efcc is an international convention.
Yeah.
All the Efcc, all the Nigerian did is just to domesticate it. And as my colleague has said, Nigeria followed that of South Africa by being one of the first African countries to set up such an agency. If there was no EFCC, I imagine what Nigeria would have been like by now. Yes, the FCC may not have done a perfect job, and there is no human institution that is perfect. We must admit that. But in so far as what the FCC has done, I think it has achieved some success, which should not be thrown away with the backwater. All we need to do is to ask the instrument of the law to be fine-tuned. You cannot say that the FCC has no power to curb corruption in the states. Where do the states get their money? States get their money from the federal. So, for the states to congregate together and say that they don't want the FCC, I think it's just a very wrong approach to the issue. And I love what the Supreme Court said. The Supreme Court in its judgment described police action as opening a can of worms of skeletons in its cupboard, which is factual. Why should it be that Kogi State, when his former governor had a problem with a running issue with the EFCC, be the one to re-roll other states? I'm just surprised that other states will allow themselves to be brought into this disrepute. Because as far as the EFCC is concerned, as we have said, it may not be a perfect instrument of law, but the fact that the EFCC is there, let me turn around the Bible passage that says something like, it is turned around to say that the fear of EFCC is the beginning of caution.
So what do you consider?
But you see, now, every governor, every public office holder is very careful now doing things that they do, because they know that EFCC is like the big brother in George Orwell's 1984, watching them. So, I believe that whatever states have, whatever misgivings they have about the EFCC, should be directed at amending the law or making it more effective if they want. But to call for outright scrapping of the EFCC is totally disingenuous. So that means
what do you consider?
The legal office holders will continue to ride roughshod over the citizens. We should not be. So it is a selfish suit that these states have filed, and I'm happy that the Supreme Court stood up to it, never allowed itself to be railroaded into thinking that the EFCC should be scrapped. For all those who are talking about true federalism and all that, it is only in this kind of cases where they think they want to be favored that they will talk of true federalism. But when it comes to implementation, proper implementation of the law, they run away from it.
What exactly do you consider?
It's a very nice thing to do.
What do you consider would be the implication of this ruling for state governors and other public officials who might be facing all kinds of investigation moving forward?
Can you repeat that? I can't hear you, please.
I was asking that what do you consider the implication of this ruling for state governors and of course other public officials that would be facing investigations in the hands of EFCC with this particular dismissal? Okay, the audio, I guess we have problem with that. Maybe Dr. Okitokun will take that part, the implications for people, for governors. He even said it's actually a selfish development, looking at India as an example.
Well, the implication is obvious. It is that the Efcc has the legal backing to continue what it has been doing, and now to do it even more effectively, because that Supreme Court judgment has affirmed any doubt that anyone will have, and that's the final one. Nobody will doubt the capacity of EFCC to prosecute, arrest and prosecute financial crimes offenders now. And now the EFCC should now be more focused. Some of the things that abduct the performance of the EFCC needs to be put aside now, and they now face the job squarely, because corruption, if you look at it, the more EFCC is doing its job, some people will say that the more corruption that we are having, and that is making some people believe that the EFCC is not really doing much. But it's like what the EFCC is doing is a drop in the ocean. There is still a lot of grounds to cover, and that's why the EFCC under the new chairman, Mr. Olu Koyede, that's his name?
Yes.
Should now brace up and ensure that we see more of the vigor in the activities of the EFCC, because to do otherwise, this nation will suffer for it. We have suffered a lot due to corruption, and if you look at Nigeria's standing when it comes to the corruption perception index, you discover that Nigeria is still very, very far behind. Nigeria is ranked as one of the worst, the most corrupt countries in the world, despite the activities of EFCC. And now, some other anti-corruption agencies such as ICPC and FIU and the Code of Conduct Bureau and all that. Now, the idea is that despite all the EFCC and all these bodies are doing, there is still that endemic nature of corruption in Nigeria. And so the EFCC should try as much as possible to ensure that some of the criticism, some of the things that people are talking about when they talk about EFCC fighting corruption, like they say that sometimes they have been very selective in the kind of the way they go about their operations, that you see some very big fishes who people know are very corrupt, visibly corrupt, both in terms of their posture and what is written about them, and the EFCC will look away. So all these things are what people see and say, oh, EFCC, they are not working. Then I also believe that to strengthen the EFCC, we also need to put in place a mechanism that will make corruption trials very fast. You see, the idea of...
Are you in support of creating a different court?
Yes. There is a need. If you want to make EFCC more effective, there is a need to make the EFCC, to have special court for trial of corruption cases. Otherwise, you can see that some cases will last 10, 15 years in court. Some governors were accused since 2008. Their cases are still pending because of one injunction or another. They go from one court seeking injunction here and all that and all that. And that does not bode well for the fight against corruption. And that's why we need a special court to try. But I'm also aware that putting in place a special court may be difficult. Difficult in the sense that the kind of people we have in the National Assembly, many of them, some of them are even also immersed in corruption trials, and they may not want to put that in place. But I think the president can initiate an executive bill and make sure that he has a parley with members of the National Assembly, and then come up with some special courts to ensure that the fight is frontally done as should be done.
I really do not know if Dr. Olayinka will be able to hear us now, but okay, fantastic. Now, it's not just the EFCC really that the governors are challenging its legality. It's also challenging the legality of the ICPC and of course the NFIU. Now, having all of these agencies in place, even our guests attested to the fact that yes, corruption has not really reduced in its real sense. We still have high cases of corruption, and of course that is why some persons are actually calling for probably the restructuring of these anti-graft agencies. Some persons believe that even before, rather than wait for these political appointees or elected officials, to leave office before you now start policing them about to get them to come on account. We can actually nip it in the bud, before the act is even done. Preventive, mechanism being put in place as part of their works as anti-graft agencies. What's your thoughts really on this?
Yes, I agree that preventive measure is better than when the act is actually done. But you see, there are some of the political office holders who have immunity.
Yes.
If a governor is found to be corrupt, there is no way the EFCC, ICPC, or NFIU will charge him or her to court until after he or she has left the office. So, what I would rather suggest is we should have a system where we can prevent before it happens. And there should be an alarm that will be blown before this happens. For instance, a state has its allocation, they have particular account the money must go into, and if the governor directs that Canton General or whoever to divert the money to another account, there should be a way that we will be able to know. A former governor was recently accused of paying billions of naira ecological funds. It shouldn't get to that point when that is exposed, whether it is true or not. Also, I think the EFCC and the ICPC and NFIU must do their jobs thoroughly. A situation where we have what we call media trial doesn't help them. There are many governors presently who are out of former governors, who have been brought to court. They have been accused of collecting, wasting or collecting billions of naira and dollars and all that. But up to today, their cases have never been decided. So there must be a way. They should, I believe that when the FCC was set up, some of their operatives went for training with FIB, the Federal Investigation Bureau in the US. That should be their model. You don't come out to accuse anybody until you've gotten iron-cast evidence. And I think their duties overlap too much. EFCC maybe should deal with politically exposed persons. EFCC should deal with politically exposed persons. ICPC maybe civil servants or government appointee, and then NFIU to deal with maybe companies and so on and so on. So they should have their cases demarcated so that they don't overlap and then become rivals. EFCC pursuing the Minister of Petroleum, the ICPC is pursuing the Minister of Petroleum, the NFIU is pursuing the Minister of Petroleum. So they are still cut out duty definition that, okay, EFCC, you're only political office holder, ICPC, maybe civil servant, and the other one, whatever. So we have a situation where if all these are very well spread out, I don't think there will be any class. But as I said earlier on, they also need to examine some of their lawyers, either the lawyers they have in-house or the lawyers they employ to pursue their cases. Because most of the lawyers compromise this issue. How can a lawyer come to court? You don't have enough evidence. You have been handling a case for 2, 3, 4 years. You come to court and you come to show the evidence. Not even a 101 law student will come to court with some of the things that some of those lawyers come to the court with. So the EFCC, the SCPC, NFIU must also re-examine itself. I believe very strongly that most times some of these problems are even caused by their own staff. So they must be able to prosecute when the evidence is out. Don't bring anybody out and say that Mr. or Dr. Lawyer so has misappropriated so billion when you don't have your ironclad evidence. That is media trial. Bring them to the media and report, and that's all.
Now, let us also look at the EFCC, really, under the saddle of Mr. Olukoyede in the last 1 year. During the confirmation screening on the floor of the National Assembly, he actually promised that he was going to fight corruption, and then he will use the fight against corruption to stimulate the economy. Recover a lot of looted funds so that the government can actually have enough really to work with really in terms of funds. And of course, in the presence of them fighting corruption, he has also promised to abide by the rule of law. Now, in 1 year, according to what they have told us, over 200 billion naira has been recovered. And of course, in 1 year, over 3,000 convictions have also been made, really. And then quite a number of persons will say the over 3,000 convictions that have actually been made are mostly cybercrime offenders and not really government political appointees of elected officials, you know, who actually we expect the EFCC should be going after. Now, how would you rate this scorecard of the current EFCC boss?
Okay. How do I rate EFCC? I think I had that. Some of the other things you said, I couldn't pick. But if it is the rating of EFCC, as I said earlier on, EFCC is doing a fairly good job, no doubt. And without the EFCC, there will have been problems in our political space. But however, I think, as I said earlier, they need to look inward. They need to examine the